I want to announce the July competition. That'll be the July 22nd, Wednesday, fourth Wednesday. The theme is long exposure, and using a long duration shutter speed. You want to capture one element we usually cannot get in conventional photography, and that's time. Time. So star trail shots would be acceptable, but stationary star shots are not acceptable. And as the judge will be Cliff Lawson. And as we have been doing, if you do not have a long exposure image that you want to present, you are allowed to present any other images that you might have. You will not be disqualified or be docked on the score for not having a long exposure. But try to do long exposure images if you can. And so anyway, going on, we have tonight we have 40 images, and we'll just go through all of them and not take a break. And as Dave mentioned, if you score high score, we'll call on you, and if you could unmute yourself so that you can comment about your image. And so anyway, tonight's judge is Jeff Johnson. Jeff's been with us quite a few times. There he is. And can you see this, Jeff?
Hey, you did. Oh, nice.
One of Jeff's images in my photography room. But Jeff's given many presentations to us, as well as judging quite a few of our competitions. And he's active in the Professional Photographers of Colorado, as well as the Professional Photographers of America. He's received many awards, and he's a master of, I don't know what you call it, judging. You've had a lot of experience with that, and well qualified to judge. We're always looking forward to Jeff, his comments and suggestions. We learn a lot. But Jeff has many wonderful tours, Cuban tours. Uh, if those are still, well, might still be available in the future, and workshops here in Colorado and other parts of the country here. But thank you for coming, Jeff. Why don't you explain what you got going on? What you could help us with?
Well, I can always offer some information, whether you like it or not. um, yeah, as Larry said, I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I think this whole COVID situation has made me certainly switch directions that I'm going in my photography as far as education. My Soul Road Trips is still going to be strong once we can get back together again. Matter of fact, we're going this weekend to the Great Sand Dunes. I've got half a dozen people that are going with me down there, and we figure we got enough room to spread out. So that should be still and always a fun time. Plus, I have other trips coming up. We are going to go to Alaska next month, or excuse me, in August, the end of August, and always have room for more. So, but yeah, this new direction that we're all forced to take, this Zoom platform, I think is pretty wonderful. I've used it quite a bit and had good luck with it, and I think it's been kind of fun. And I'm actually going to the direction of I'm creating a new website called the Creative Edge.live, and it will be my tutorials and teachings. So there'll be lots of videos up there, and lots of opportunity. There's nothing there just yet. I'm in the middle of putting stuff together, but there'll be all kinds of short talks and longer stuff, and invite all of you to come and check it out. And eventually there will be a registration and a fee for users like some of the other sites are, because I hope to have hundreds and hundreds of videos for you. So that's my project. And again, I'm grateful for Larry for asking me to be part of this for you this evening. So I'm anxious to see what you guys all have for images. So let's roll.
This is our first image in
Okay.
5.6.
Okay, it's called support.
Support. This is actually very, I love the thought process too, the support theme here, and you can conjure up a lot of stories with this kind of a title for the story that this tells. But I think it's an interesting point of view, one that we certainly don't see every day. I think it's a strong image story-wise. You know, even a little technical. It's got a little tip to the right. It's got quite a high contrast range, but I think it works real well for this image. So I'll give this an 8.
Let's see, makes, breaks, reflections.
Read that again, please, Larry.
Makes, M-A-K-E-S,
Oh, okay.
makes,
Oh,
breaks, reflections.
okay. Gotcha.
You give them to Sunny. Benadryl?
Interesting concept there.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. No, interesting concept, especially with the title. Again, you know, you guys know me. I've talked about titles before and how I think titles make or break. Not to play off this title here, but they make or break an image. And I think this is telling us a great story about what this little guy's doing coming through the water here. There's a nice reflection that's obviously fits the theme by the most part. The abstract pattern in the background is quite interesting. So I just think the nice placement of the little fellow there is good. It shows the motion from where he's come from. So I'll give this an 8.
Lake,
Okay.
L-A-K-E, lake.
Okay. Very subtle color hues here, which is, I think, very nice. A lot of times we try and pump color into our images, and sometimes it's just not necessary. This whole feeling of cold and wintertime and just this very, very subdued color cast just makes you feel the cold here. You feel the actual like we're standing there looking at this. It's an awful lot going on. There's a lot of lines, a lot of things to follow, but it's a almost kind of an interesting abstract. So I'll give this one an 8 too.
What, could you explain a little bit how you would improve it or what you'd like to see for improvement?
Well, you know, there's a concept of focal point, and I'm not trying to be funny about it. We understand what a focal point is, a place to focus. Not every image has to have a focal point. Makes that a little bit interesting to view because our brains want to go to a place. But the flow of everything, the branches and the direction and just spanning out, it just lets your eye wander around the scene. I would say there's really not a focal point. Technically speaking, the snow on the right side, lower right, draws your eye because it is the brightest part of the scene. In this case, good, bad, or indifferent, no, it doesn't matter. I think it just allows us to wander around the scene. If you didn't want us to notice that white snow on the, is that like a dock edge or just the edge of the ground there, you would need to play that down. But this is one of those images that lets you wander freely, but you stay within the image. There's an awful lot of lines going on, awful lot of cool things, and I think it's just got a lot of great movement.
forest, stream, forest.
Okay, forest, stream, forest. Okay. Um, Again, interesting point of view. I like the concept here that the maker is telling us to, um, see the elements that are in here, in a sense, almost a repetition, because we have the trees at the top and then we have the reflection of the trees. I like the composition. It's very, it's guiding us into the scene from foreground through background. The one thing well, everybody hold your hand up to the image and crop across from the bottom of where the bank comes into play on both sides. Still allows the reflection of the sun, but I think it zeroes in a little bit more to the concept, because there is what happens is we're drawn to the sun reflection in the water, and I don't think that's the focal point that the maker is intended. I think they want us to travel down the waterway a little bit. There's an awful lot of water. The reflection is nice. The exposure is done well. I love the softness of the trees in the background. But I kind of think if you were to kind of cut off some of that foreground and make it a long, narrow horizontal, that could be even stronger. But again, it's handled well. Detail in the snow, detail in the trees, the shadows are nice. I'll give this an 8.
And that's it.
Well, we don't have any 9s or 10s, so I suggest we go on to the F8.
Okay.
Morning stretch.
That's pretty good. Again, I think titles really tell stories nicely, and with saying morning, we've got this nice warm light coming in from the sun and the birds stretching, and nice reflection. I like the slight ripples in the water. It just really makes you kind of want to stretch along with the bird and think about what's going to happen for the day. It looks like it's nice and sharp and good good exposure, which was kind of tough with that bright light hitting the white feathers. I like the placement that it's just a little off center, so we've got some chance for movement to the right. It just feels nice. I'll give this one a 9. This is very well done.
Tree reflection.
Good eye here to see this reflection in this globe. Very abstract, almost like an old master's painting. And then to have the leaves pile up around it gives us a sense of size, and it gives us a sense of reality in comparison. The white background, I know this is tough because it obviously looks like it's a winter scene, but the white background keeps pulling me away from the scene. It almost looks like it's cut out in a sense. If that background could have been just a little more subdued, or grasses or leaves back there that were subtle, I think it would have allowed the image to stand out. Unfortunately, it's pulling my eye away from the tree quite a bit. So because of that, I'll give this a 7.
I'm sorry, what was the score on that?
7.
See, blue hour reflection.
This is very well done to be able to capture a drop like that, and it doesn't matter whether it was done with a device or just a slow shutter or something to capture it. It's done very well. I'm really excited about this, and I love the fact that the droplets are sharp and it goes soft behind it. This is just a beautiful art piece. The color of the reflection of the water is very soothing, very, very comfortable. The composition is done nicely. I like the just off-center placement of the drops and the rings of water from the droplets. Wow, I could hang this on my wall. This is pretty cool. I think I'm going to give this one a 10. Well done.
golden vase or vase.
That's okay. Depends on the price. What an eye. I love this, that when folks see reflections in different things. Very well done. I mean, it's an interesting concept here in a sense. I mean, I get the feel that we have I'm guessing a dirt road or something behind the vase or the vase. But the reflection is nice. It looks like it's part of it. Yeah, it's pretty well done. I like that. It's 8. I'll give it an 8.
And that's it for this group.
Okay.
And we have one 10 and one 9.
Here's our 10.
Okay, that's Blue Hour Reflections by Cliff Stockdill. Are you here, Cliff? Cliff?
Yeah, can you hear me there?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was I actually just did this on my desk in my office. The lake, there's a fry pan of water, and the blue is a reflection off my wife's yoga pants in the back.
Get out.
But I just used a flash to freeze the drops. It was just dropping water into the pan, and took a number of them. But yeah, that's about it. Just right here in the office.
That is great, Cliff. Good job. I love the creativity. And I mean, seriously, in my mind, I'm thinking you're deep in the forest somewhere and you happen to see this little puddle, and I could see it kind of gloomy, and you're trying to get home, and I better grab this one shot real quick. So nice work.
Yeah. Oh, that it were so, huh?
Very good, Cliff.
Thanks.
We have a 9 called The Morning Stretch by Fred Stearns. Unmute yourself, Fred.
Did I get unmuted?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, this was early morning at Swan Lake in Yellowstone.
Nice.
And yeah, there was a couple of swans sitting in there sleeping. And as the sun came down, this one did his little dance and spread his wings. And I happened to catch him right at the right time. One of those things, if you're prepared, you get the picture. If you're not, you don't.
Right. No, I like the casualness of the whole feeling. I mean, we see swans in several different positions, but this one just looks a little bit more not the usual pose, so to speak, that we see swans in, and he's just waking up, stretching, and you grabbed it. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. We'll go to F11 now. Glamorous Gal.
Very nice. I like the concept here of taking advantage of the old fighter planes when they had the use the names of ladies and things that and then have the glamorous gal and dressed in the same. I think a lot of times we see images without a theme with a good idea, but this, the clothing on the woman and the whole feeling. But even the composition of the plane, we can see it's an aircraft, but yet just the way you portrayed it is very good. I mean, this is really nice. I'll give this a 9. It's very well done.
Wall detail after spring snow.
I'm sorry, do you hear the knocking in my background? The neighbor is doing something in their apartment. I'm so sorry. It's very annoying here. All right, I'll try.
No, I didn't hear anything.
Okay, good, because it's very loud here, so I'm hoping my mic doesn't pick up. Sorry about that. All right. Well, I think we got, obviously, it's great detail, some nice flow through the scene, capturing the snow and the fresh snow, and there's still a couple little berries there and leaves. Just really nice detail. There's one thing that in the elements of design that I've talked about before, the 12 elements of design that we use for judging impact is the first one, because it determines how much we stay with an image. Think of when you've seen an image and you just look at it and you're wow, and you can't pull your eyes from it. This has some great impact because it was different, but unfortunately it kind of was fleeting impact. I think it's done very nicely. The subject matter is interesting, but it doesn't hold my attention as much. So because of that, I'm going to give this a 7.
Reflect on the positive.
And this is just very colorful, very creative. I like the whole feel of your first sense. What are we looking at? And yet, I think it's very well done. The lines of the diagonals, and then the diagonal of where the water is lighter and then darker, where the reflection of the castle, the ice castle, whatever begins, is very strong. I mean, we have almost this Z pattern in there, which just keeps you moving through the scene and investing it. There's a lot of wonderful colors in there. And then it offsets with a little bit of the break of the light reflected of the sky and the water towards the middle third there and down. So I just kudos to the maker of this one. I'll give this a 9. I think this is just a really strong compositional piece. Good job.
Showboat.
Very clever. I like that this comparison with a boat with a lot of colorful elements on it. The composition is done very nicely. I like the tall blades of grass there in the foreground. Then we go off to the left, and then there's some back to the right. The plants back in the water. It allows us to move through the scene, and in between, again, we have these couple of balls in the water, and then up to the boat, if you will. And the background is very subtle, but very, very just done very nice. It doesn't pull our attention away. It's very supportive. Of course, the colors of the glass balls really pull us in. Exposure, boy, right on. You've got a good challenge here. There's good detail in the grasses, the water plants, and the detail in the balls on the little boat there. Just a very nice composition. Good eye. I'll give this a 9. I like it.
A Night in Paris.
Night in Paris. Okay, I see some nice reflections there, and the colors. I like how the lights have kind of got a little bit of the glow to them. It makes it just kind of a warm and cozy, especially we're in Paris. The one thing that's working against it a little bit is that we have this tip to the right. The horizontal lines can be tipped, and that's okay, but I'm seeing all the verticals having a tip to the right, which kind of feels a little awkward. There's also quite a bit of empty space here at the bottom of the extra water. I think this could have been cropped in from the bottom, maybe a good quarter to a third of the image, and it might have made it a little stronger. It just kind of lets us wander down at the bottom. I like the concept of it, the point of view. I like the elevated point of view is nice. The leading line of the walkway on the left is nice. That's nicely done, but we'll give this a 7.
Boy on a Mission.
Again, I'm impressed with your titles. You guys are doing a good job here. It's very cool. This is a great story. He's obviously on a mission. I love that he's very crisp and clean from the background, but how much more defined he is in the water. just creates so much more motion to this thing. I like that you've left it over the little boy over to the left, so he's got room to go. We can see his fishing pole in his hand very clearly in the water. The colors are just nice and subtle. Really, really nice. I like this story here. We'll give this a 9.
Southern Serenity.
Nice story here as well. I like the feeling of being in the deep south and the swampy gardens that they create down there, and the reflection is nice and crisp and really has a good feel. I like that it's almost a mirror-like surface, makes it just kind of an interesting reflection. Again, minor. I feel there's a tip to the right, which makes it a little awkward. I could be off my rocker there, but I get the feeling that we're kind of tipped to the right a little bit. I'd love to see this just a little deeper in tones. I think we have some beautiful colors in here that are a little washed out, that I think could be a little richer if this was a little deeper in tone. But composition is great. The story is great. It's very inviting. I'd love to go stand on that bridge to see what happens. So I'm gonna give this an 8.
Chicago architecture.
That's very cool. Good eye on this one. I love the reflection, but even the nice, clean, crisp panels of glass. But look what it's done to the building. I know that area pretty well, and it's a neat concept. But this is such a different way of looking at it, how it distorts and breaks up the image, even on those several panels in the blue where it's just showing a little bit of the image on the bottom of the side of the panel. Such a great abstract. Colors are good. It moves you around the scene. Again, this, like I was talking about before, there's not really a focal point as opposed to the whole image being the focal point. But it works as a piece of abstract art. Geez, I don't know that there's anything I would look at and do differently to this. So maybe hanging on my wall. So nice job. I'm gonna give this a 10. Really, really sings.
Yeah, really interesting to see from this picture.
Alpine Reflections. Is that right?
Yeah, this is really interesting. What do I want to say? The reflections that you've seen, and we all jump to thinking water or something like that, but this is done so very well in terms of what you see. I feel it's a little bit crowded in here. I know we're looking at the reflections, but I feel like we're just kind of have filled the frame up so much that it's just a little bit, it's tense. Anytime we put something like we've got the roof line and the side of the building hitting the edge of the frame, it just creates a tension. Good or bad, not necessarily either one. It just is. So there's a tension there that is part of it. Color scheme is done nicely. I like the reflection is very nice and bright. There's a blue tint to the shadows, which is a good contrast. So I'll give this an 8.
Twilight Reflections.
Well, this is really pretty. Nice capture here. I think it's kind of nice. We were talking about direction and such, and this leads us across this bridge here. The little lights on the posts are a nice invite across the bridge, takes us up to the gate there. So it gives us some direction, but we can reflect, no pun intended, and look around at the beautiful sunset that's happening both in the sky and in the water. I like the exposure is very nice on this. It's allowed the bluish color and the salmon color there to stand out more. The pier is dark but not gone black, so we have just a little bit of detail in there that gives us a feel of it's okay to walk down that walkway there. So I like this one very much. I'm going to give this a 9.
Code Blue Coal Harbor. Or Cool Blue
Blue.
Coal Harbor.
Okay. This is very intriguing. It's gone very abstract. The reflections are surreal, and yet there's not really much of. Looks like it's probably a long exposure. I'm guessing. I feel pretty confident in that. So we've got movement in the water, but in a sense that all it's done is to obscure the lines of the building. So it's done very well. My first thought was to maybe crop in a little closer and have it just be the buildings. But the more I look at this, I'm totally okay with. I like the placement of where you've put the horizon line instead of just right across the middle. You've raised it up a little bit. So this is just it's a great art piece. It's an abstract, yet there's some nice detail without anything overpowering it. The only get really picky. The couple things that pull my eye, which are really nothing. On the far left, there's that little orange light, and there's the red streak in the water. I know the reflections, but minor thing. But maybe if those were toned down a little bit, I don't know. This is more I look at this, the score keeps going up. So I'll sit here for a while and see how high we can get the score. Let's go 10 on it. I think it's done very well.
I don't. That's okay.
Tranquility.
Yes, it is. It's a very tranquil scene. Who doesn't want to sit there and enjoy this early morning, late afternoon, whichever it is. I like the composition with the bank being at an angle. It lets us guide us into that rock over there on the far side. That's kind of our focal point. The repetition of reflections in the water, and yet the lily pads over the top of it is a nice break. It gives us some great dimension. Nicely done. Tough exposure. Good job on that. Colors are very believable or rich and deep. I'll give this a 9.
Touching down.
Again, a very interesting point of view here. A lot of times we'd look at a whole balloon and try and get the whole balloon in the picture, but I love that you've concentrated on the reflection. You guys have probably heard me talk many times about putting the horizon line in the middle of your scene, and let me just tell you, this is when to do it. A lot of times it creates for static, but it's such a subtle horizon line. It's a beautiful mirrored reflection with a little bit of texture with the water moving. Still lets us go back up to the balloon, and the colors are it's interesting. We've got this soft, subtle green, and yet the reds and the blues are still kind of vibrant. This is a beautiful capture. It can make an awesome poster. It could make a very unique wall piece. Yeah, this is just done very well. I'll give this a 10. Nice work.
We Western or Rockland County?
Aspen by Pond.
Well, I'll compliment you on the composition, especially where the horizon placement is, and not having that be right in the middle, because this is obviously more obvious of a horizon line. But I think your choice of where you've captured the trees, there's some good movement. We have one clump on the left, the bigger clump, and then it kind of breaks off into the shadow on the right. Nice colors, good tones. I'll give this an 8.
How would you improve that, Jeff?
It the shadows seem a little heavy. Again, this is just my personal taste. I over on the right there, I do see some detail, so they're not all blocked up blacks. But I think the image would serve better to have just a little more brightness to it. I don't mean just making it lighter. It would be something like in Lightroom with the white slider, just to punch up the whites and maybe giving us a little bit more depth to it. There's a decent contrast range, but the tonal range is kind of flat. There's dark, there's mid-tone, there's bright. There's not middle tones throughout. I'm being real picky here, but I think the colors look fine. I think the reflection looks fine. I just feel like it's a little bit dull overall is the word that comes to mind, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because that kind of comes down to preference, but I think it could have a little bit more presence about it, if that helps.
Sure, thank you. Glass reflections in blue.
Very interesting concept here to be able to capture the plant and the lily pads with some light on it and have the background be a little bit deeper, because there's an awful lot of lines going on here, but you did a really nice job of pulling the curve and the green away from the straight of the blues and purples and the violets in the background. That was a heck of a challenge. Even allowing for the reflection of the plant to stand out more in the water. This is a tough one, boy. I'll pat you on the back for this one. I'm going to give this one a 9. It's just really interesting. Looked like it was quite the challenge. Nice job.
Biker reflection.
Okay. Well, I think the title is kind of throwing me off. I kind of see the biker. At least that's what I think it is. I mean, I see the handlebar up there, and I guess that's the helmet. So the title is, I understand where you're going. It's kind of throwing me off a little bit. But I think it's a good idea, good concept. It's handled very well technically. It's sharp. It's got good crispness. You didn't lose any highlights. But the concept going with the title, it's not working for me. Sorry to say. I'm gonna give this a 7.
That's the end of the F11. We have 1, 2, 3 10s.
That's probably what I would have been.
That's Chicago Architecture by Bill Rothenmeier. Are you here, Bill?
Yes, I am. I took this. They have an architectural boat ride in Chicago along the Chicago River. And that moves pretty fast for photography, but I managed to get this one.
Oh, well done. Good capture. I think it's, whether you could actually plan for this or not, you were very successful in it. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. This is Cool Blue Coal Harbor by Sean Slade.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for your comments on this. And
Sure.
I did use long exposure because there was subtle movement on the harbor, but I just wanted to flatten it out and elongate those reflections, if you will, and kind of get a little bit of movement in the clouds. And
Right.
I toyed with the horizon, but then I thought there's a gradation in the color of the water, so I wanted to put it upwards and hopefully draw your eye in, and then mute down the tones with some luminosity masks to kind of replicate. It was taken on a December gray Pacific Northwest weather, You know, Vancouver, if you haven't been there, it's one of my favorite city skylines. So, yeah, I just wanted to try and replicate the mood of the grayness.
Well, as I sit and look at it too, I'm seeing from your long exposure, there's some nice diagonals coming in from the white of the clouds from the upper left into the city line, and then that they're emulated just slightly in the reflection of the water. So I am glad that you left that much foreground. It really pulls us back into the city line. Very well done.
Thank you.
Touching Down by Gwen Patton.
Well, that was taken at a hot air balloon festival a couple years ago in Steamboat Springs. And it's a great place. Of course, it was very early in the morning. And it is such a great place to go to a balloon festival because you get all these reflections off the lake. I mean, that to me, that's better than seeing the actual balloon in, you know, in its entirety.
Yeah, I like that you chose that that early morning light because it really lets the colors are very real, and yeah, just I really compliment on your choice of cropping here because we do have the horizon line in the middle and even the middle line of the balloon, but it creates for a very nice strong pattern that keeps you right there in the middle. So good job.
I was toying with the idea of cutting some off the top, you know, so it wouldn't be in the middle, but I decided to just leave it.
Good choice.
So I'm
Good
glad
choice.
I did.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good choice.
Thank you, Gwen.
You're welcome.
Now we can go into F16. Intersections.
Boy, I like this. This is great, and really the title is right, is spot on, because there's just intersections everywhere, reflections everywhere, and yet there's still some great depth to this. You can easily pick up a sharp focus on the front um, edge of the window there, and probably just the wear from weather, and yet have the feeling of depth into the reflection. Which way is the reflection going? You know, that's what's are cool about reflections. I think it's a great abstract, but yet has some. I don't know, for those of us who like to have some sense of direction in our pictures, we can follow through with the between the panes of glass and move around the scene. Again, this is one that, well, I'll say, you know, initially didn't strike me as having a focal point, but I take that back. This middle frame, the corner of the building here is our focal point. But there's a lot of great movement from that, and with all the lines that keep coming back, just handled well. Tough one for exposure. You handled that very nicely. Very pleasing. I can just keep looking at it. And then what's kind of cool is the occasional bent line of the flaw in the glass, probably. That just gives it that little touch of abstract that makes this kind of, I think, to me, represents how the world really is. We try hard, but it's just not perfect, is it? So I'm going to give this a 10. Very nice work.
Life's Essentials.
Wow, this is very cool. I love the background that was chosen for this. It just really has a nice concept to it that what the heck are these things, and yet you can kind of guess at what they are, but the balance is done very nicely. I mean, there's just such nice flow about the scene. There's, again, not necessarily a focal point, although I will say the little indent that I'm kind of feeling in this front object kind of brings our eye to ground it back to that. But the tones through these light grays, I mean, these are zones 7, 8, 9 in the zone system, are just handled so well. Nicely done. I have to give this a 10.
outside in.
Boy, no kidding. Very nice exposure. This looks like it was a tough one. You've got an awful lot of lines, even with the clouds, the pavement out in front, the tile, the bricks, whatever it is. Even I like that you left it. I'm really going to say this is cool. I like you left the falling perspective of it and didn't straighten it out. That just adds, you've got a lot of stuff going on and just creating this little bit of fall away feel with the sides of the buildings. I think really complements the whole thing. Man, there is detail in there. Very nice work. Just exemplary. Even things like, so we have the tree on the right side that's out at the corner of the building, but the contrail on the upper left, those play off each other and allow us to bounce back and forth and to come in back to the scene. And even just having the highlight of the sun or the bright spot on the building becomes almost a focal point to ground us into this. So just, I think, very well done. I don't know what more I could have suggested to do or not do with it. I have to give this a 10. This is just very, very well done. Good capture.
Textural reflections.
Again, very good eye. I'm really right off the bat pleased that you did not straighten the horizontals. I like the little bit of tip. We've got such repetition in here that can become very stagnated. Stagnated, is that a word? It's very stagnant. So having the horizontals be just a little tipped was a very good choice. The tones throughout handled very well. Gosh, I'm making this hard for myself. I have to give this a 10 too. This is just good balance, good movement. Nice job.
Captured sky.
So at first, when this first popped up, I said, oh, wow, nice job capturing the sky reflected in the building. But as I look at this, we're looking into the side of a building at the building behind us with the sky reflected in that, if I'm correct. That's genius, my friend. Very, very nicely done. Handled well. Exposure is tough with all the highlights and the not too many deep tones, but you've got a good range of color. Just very nicely done. I'll give this a 9.
I'm not interested.
Love the play on words. Very nice tonal range, very, very subtle. I mean, you might have, other than the black in the center of the eye, gosh, you probably only have 4 or 5 zones in there that just really make this so subtle and rich feeling. Look at the texture throughout. You can see all the little feathers and the edges of the white feathers, and then you keep coming back to the eye. Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a 10 as well. This is just very strong, very compelling, be beautiful hanging on the wall over the fireplace.
Marina morning.
Nice composition here too. I think I like how the rear end of the boats are a diagonal. We have a lot of verticals of the reflections, and yet we have a little relief there with just the little bit of dock that we see coming in from the left, and then it goes away from us with the line through the rear of the boats in a diagonal. Really nice capture, handled well. I'll give this an 8.
How would you improve it, Jeff?
I don't know. It's one of those captures that's probably as good as it's going to get. I don't mean that in a negative sense. there's a lot of neat reflection, but there's just nothing that's really catching my eye. The one thing that I do see quite a bit are the red in the reflections, which is not good or bad. That's what catches my eye. The light blue of the shadow of the boats back there in the shadow, and then the big boat in the upper left keep pulling me out of the reflections. And I'm trying to look at, well, if you crop down, then you kind of lose the feeling of the boat. So it's sometimes a picture is good and it just can only be so good. I don't know what I would actually do to improve this, short of walking right or left a few feet to change it. I think it's handled very well the way it is. I don't know what I could do with this to make it any better. That happens quite often in photographs. What's
Maybe
that?
if you called the rear end of the boat a transom instead of the rear end.
That would probably be correct. Yeah, but I'm a landlubber, so I was going to call them the ass end of the boats, but I don't know how that would go over.
A surfeit of reflections.
Yeah, look at that. There's quite a smorgasbord of reflections. Nice capture to see, obviously not just the window, but what it's done with all the different versions of the scene behind. I like the composition. It's just very simple, very straight on, nice, what do I want to say, potpourri of imagery. So I'll give it an 8.
Here again, what did you see things to improve on that?
Well, again, it's one of those things, and this is hard to say, and I don't mean this as anything bad, but sometimes there's only so much you can do with an image, other than I may have processed it differently, which doesn't necessarily make it better. There's not a focal point, really. I mean, you can say the window, but there's a lot of movement, texture, and the panes of glass that keep your eye bopping around. So yes, the window is the focal point, but in this case, that kind of isn't a lot of times an image the focal point will be the most important, or the part that you want the viewer to see right off the bat or to travel to. And this window itself is doing that, so it allows us to look at all the different textures in there. Again, I mean, this could be an interesting black and white, but I don't know that it would make it any better. It would make it different. So there's a lot of, face it, folks, there's a lot of imagery we do in our lives that is just good and really good. And sometimes, can it be improved? No, you've probably done the best you can. Sometimes it's just our choice of imagery. Again, I'm not making any judgment on this one, but there's nothing here that just reaches out and grabs me and doesn't let go of me to view this image. It's done very well, but I don't think there's much more in the scene that we could have worked with to make it, oh my God, this is gorgeous. Again, I don't mean that as an insult. The reality is, it's hard to come up with outstanding photographs every time we shoot, but I think this is handled very well for what it is.
Well, your comments are very appreciated, Jeff. Thanks.
Well, good. I hope I'm not trying. I don't mean to step on anybody's toes by any means. You guys know me, but I also want to be truthful to you. I don't want to just say, "Oh my God, that's fantastic," when I'm not referring to this image when I say this, but you know how that can be. Oh my God, that's beautiful. This is not Facebook, folks. I'm going to be real with you. So.
No, I understand. We all understand.
Oh, that's cool. Appreciate that.
Sure. Reflected skyline.
Well, you guys, I really enjoy the points of view that you've chosen for these photographs. Some really interesting things, and to see this scene in this window with this extra texture in there I'm just trying to decipher the image, which I don't really want to pull apart, because the building is not so much a building as it is abstract shapes. And then we have this texture over that, and then of course the panes of the window. It's just very dimensional. And then we have people walking there, which I think really adds to it. It brings it back. It grounds us. The color harmony in this is fantastic. We have cyans and blues in the shadows, and then the yellows and golds, which are opposite each other on the color wheel. And it's a lot of verticals, and then we have the line of the wall, the walkway, which just really breaks up the whole scene. I mean, this is a very well conceived art piece. So my kudos to the one who captured this and shot this, because I think it's, the more I look at it, the more intriguing it is. So I'm gonna give this a 10.
Sunset Reflection 1.
Well, this is beautiful. I can't wait to see 2. No, I'm kidding. Very, very nice composition. I love how from the left we have the rocks, and then the reflection of the rocks starting wide and coming down. It's pointing us into the scene. We have a little bit of, I think if the water would have been empty in front and just blue, it would have been pretty, but I think the rocks and the little bit of tree laying there give us a stepping stone, that foreground, middle ground, background kind of a feeling that gives us depth in the scene. The clouds are fantastic, the color harmonies. I really would like to see this darker. I kind of get the feeling that it's, I don't want to say over processed, but the shadows look like they've been pushed a little bit too much. I'd love to see just the overall density of this to come down, because having stood in environments like this many times when the sun's just hitting the rocks, those rocks are really orange caramel color, and the blues get deep and rich. And I would love to see this just take the density down, the darkness, make it darker by a stop, 2 stops, not in exposure, but in processing. And I think you'd have something that was absolutely killer. As it is, though, it's definitely a 9, and my compliments to the maker.
Lona.
Very nicely handled portrait. I like that the face still is primary, that the face reflection is just a little bit deeper in density, so it doesn't make our brains have to compete with what set of eyes to look at. This is a tough one to do. I've done this myself several times, and it's a tough one to light, and you've done it very well. Even we'll definitely compliment you on the placement of the light. It's still got a good lighting pattern on her face, so that there's roundness and depth. The nose shadow is in a good spot that looks very realistic. So my compliments to you and your portrait lighting skills. The position of her hands is just really interesting, because her arms, like, bring us right back into the face. There's a nice little crisp light pulling her away from the background. I can see the edge of her very dark hair against the dark background. That was always one I used to get in trouble with my dad years ago in photographing portraits, is if I didn't create light on the head so that we wouldn't lose it into the background. You've done this very well. So I'll give this a 9. Very well done.
Crazy Sand Dune.
Well, that's very cool. It's a different take on sand dunes. Since I'm going this weekend, it'll give me something else to think about. Really interesting piece. Great tonal range from one end of the zone to the other, with this detail, nice highlights. I like the reflected, or not, sorry, not reflected, but the high white tones on the top of the dunes, going into the shadows. Just really well done. I love to look at the stuff. There's you can see some great patterns in textures when you do this kind of thing. So nice piece. Let's give this an 8.
How would you improve that, Joe?
Well, let's see. The first thing I saw, there's a lot of the top shadow area is a big heavy portion of the scene, and I don't really see detail. Unfortunately, this is the downside of judging on a computer, but I'm not seeing detail in that shadow. It's a lot of big dark area that asks for attention and there's nothing there. So my first thought was to crop down. So just bring the top down just right above those, the other highlight areas of the next set of dune. I think might bring it a little stronger. You know, again, I can look at and suggest, and maybe personal things, not necessarily better, but maybe the color of the sand could be a little warmer. I see grays in it, which comes from darkening that. I mean, I think it's a wonderful concept. I mean, kudos to the maker for even just having this vision. So that right there is worth something, huh?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Sea monster.
It's growing on me as I sit and look at it. That's why I'm quiet. It's got some really beautiful patterns, the curves of the reflection in the water. The color harmony is really nice. I love the green, yellow, and blue. Very simple, but lots of shades of each. You know, the more I see it, the more I think what I really like is this one. I'm guessing it's I'll say porthole, but probably like the anchor or something. The yellow eye, if you will. And if you use your imagination, I see several animals in here. So we'll take, that'll be a whole nother program. But I definitely think this has got a 9 on it, and my compliments to the maker for seeing this. Very well done.
Well, let's see. Which one is this, Bob?
After the rain.
I don't have that.
I'm wondering if this is at number 2.
Oh, sunset reflection too.
No, that is not sunset reflection 2.
It just says after the rain.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's after the rain.
Yeah, Larry, that's mine. This is Butch Mazuka.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you know, after the rain makes a lot of sense in this one, and I think again, it's just a great capture. Sometimes it's easy to get the rainbow, sometimes it's easy to get the landscape, but to get both of them, and I'm even just impressed with how well we can see the rainbow even on the mountain itself, how it's standing out from the rock. So that alone is just really nice. You know, it's just one of these scenes that is just very pleasing to the eye. Everything about it. I mean, technically, you've done a great job. There's detail throughout everything, highlights the shadows. I would love to maybe see this just a little deeper, in darker, I should say, in density. So it's just a little bit darker, not to lose the reflections in the water, but I think if that blue sky and the mountain itself could have been just maybe a little bit darker, it might seem a little richer. Again, I'm not judging that, judging against that because of what I said. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in there. But I think it's a very strong 8, and I think as I look at it, I'm going to go to 9 with it as my final answer. Just very well done. Nice capture.
Don't do the blue acid.
Tyler Lone gets a big score, huh? Don't do the blue acid. Well, again, we got just a lot of, I mean, it's very chaotic, but there's some rhythm to it, which is nice. There's good detail throughout. We've got, I mean, really, even in the front of this building, the line going down through the middle of the scene, probably the focus area even has nice shadows on it. So it's just, there isn't one area that's just a solid brightness or density. It's just a really neat, I don't want to say abstract piece. And I think these windows towards the very top, the dark windows, gives us a sense of reality to it, which is, I think, a lot of times a very good point in an abstract, because it can get to be so abstracty, is another word I just made up, that you kind of tend to lose concept with it. But I think having those dark windows be, oh yeah, okay, that gives me a sense of what it is. So I think this is done very nice. I'll give this a 9.
Sunset reflection 2.
I love the camera angle here. We're a little bit lower. We've got the water coming in from the left instead of just straight across the scene. Beautiful colors, nice tonal range even throughout the subtle grasses, both in the foreground and across the waterway. Nice, just a little bit of highlight in the mountains, the hills back there to give some separation between the trees. Really, really nicely done. This would be a, they could see this hanging in some office of some Hartlaub law firm kind of a thing. And
Thank you, Jeff.
yeah, just a very, very love. I mean, this is the kind of image where you want to grab your lawn chair and run out there and sit down at the edge of the water and just enjoy this before it's gone. So this is really growing on me, and I'm going to have to give this a 10 because this is just a beautiful, heartfelt capture here.
That's it.
We have 7 10s.
Who the heck did that? Hey, no, seriously, nice work, you guys. I mean, seriously, creative is all crap. That's just fantastic.
Intersections by Ron Schaller. Are you here, Ron? Unmute if you are.
Well, good job, even if you're not here.
Maybe he's not here. Okay, this is Life's Essentials by Joe Bonita.
This is my COVID-19 picture. This is generated by COVID-19.
That's fantastic, Joe.
And I was kind of taken by the sweep of the toilet seat, and then I had to put the toilet paper roll on top of it.
Yeah, no, I think this is very, very creative, period, whether COVID or no COVID.
Yeah, the background is actually 2 gradients facing each other, dark to light and from the bottom, dark up to light.
Gotcha.
I thought it was something from Greece.
You know what? That's exactly what I first thought when it came up, too.
Yeah. Somebody else thought that, too, who saw this picture. They said they thought it was, like those Greek churches.
Yeah, nicely done.
Thanks.
You're getting closer and closer to Edward Weston. He did a lot of toilets. Let's see, Outside In by Travis Broxton.
Well, this was, I was just out wandering around the tech center one day, and I thought I'd go into the old Harlequin Plaza, and they moved all the chessboard out and all the statues that were there, and this thing was there now. So I just took a picture of it, and we had reflections for this month. I just thought it'd be a good month to enter it. That's it.
Nicely done. It doesn't look very big. What size is it?
It's big. It's really big. I mean, it's a building inside. It's probably a couple stories.
Oh crap! Okay.
Yeah, and this is there's a sitting area that's outside that's reflected on the sides of it, and it didn't get me, I guess, because I was in dead center, and for some reason it didn't get my reflection.
Yeah, you're not that big, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, yeah, thanks.
You're too skinny, man. Nice work, Trav.
Okay.
Yeah, Textural Reflections by Nancy Meyer.
I'm here. I've been down to downtown several times, not recently, but just looking for interesting reflections in windows and so forth. And this was one of the more interesting ones that I came up with. And obviously I originally shot it in color, but there wasn't really that much color in it. So I turned it into black and white.
Good choice. I think the color would have taken away from the great capture of the patterns and even, like I said, just the window panes at that little bit of an angle, I think just makes it that much more compelling. So good job.
And I couldn't tell you where it was down there.
Private location. She's keeping it a secret.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm Not Interested by Joe B.
This was a flamingo down in the Bahamas. We took the family on one of these Disney cruises, and part of it took place, went on in the Bahamas. I don't recommend Disney cruises because I may have told some of you before. What you have is a ship with 4,000 people, 2/3 of them are screaming children. But there was a flamingo there doing this routine, and I thought, it looks like he's go away,
Yeah. Nice.
Thanks, Joe. Reflected Skyline by Oz.
Yeah, I took this in Oslo, Norway at the Opera House a few years ago, and it's a little complicated. Inside the building are wooden pieces that you see giving the texture. Those show up because the building is darker. In the sky, you don't see that so much because the reflection is brighter than the wood. And then I made things a little lighter in places and a little darker in places just to direct your eye to the right places. And then just the slant of the glass added framing. So anyway, Oslo, Norway, the Opera House.
I'm glad you did do the little tip on the closer window because that just made it more interesting. And then honestly, is that a couple walking there? That
it is.
to me was the highlight of the whole thing. Talk about depth in one single reflection. That's very well done.
The other thing is there were some lines that ran through the couple all the way down, and I worked pretty hard to get rid of those. And I probably lost some detail in the heads of the people, but I thought that was.
I think it's fine. Yeah, I mean, you can identify that they're two people. I don't think we need to see, faces or anything. I think it just creates that little extra spot in there that gives us depth to the whole. I mean, depth in a reflection is not as easy as it sounds to do. So good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oz.
You're welcome.
Oh, that was a 9. The one on, Sunset Reflection 2 by Danny Lamb.
It was captured just a few days ago in Custer State Park, South Dakota. And Jeff, I appreciate your comments for both Sunset Reflection 1 and 2.
I think it's a great job, Danny. It's so inviting. I mean, that's what we miss a lot of times on landscapes is we're so concerned about all the techniques we can do that we kind of lose the feeling of the reality of it. And I want to open my curtains and see this every morning. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. That's all we have, all the 10s. Jeff, did you have any other announcements you want to tell us about or what you're going on?
You're asking me to talk and move on because I can no. No. Well, first of all, I want to compliment all of you on the work. I mean, just really outstanding. A lot of great stuff. Following the theme or not, I'm seeing great exposures. I'm seeing great compositions, color harmonies, just things that are cool. The program that I'm giving tomorrow night. And just trying to think what would be the easiest way. If I sent the link, what would be easier, Larry? If I sent you the link and you sent it to everybody, or just everybody have my email and just send me I want to get in, I can send you the link. I mean, that would be, I'm trying to think what would be easier to do.
Yeah, I don't know if Carl can do it, or give us your email and we can.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this thing.
Carl is definitely the guy to do it because I'm the one that has the master list to send out to all the members and everything else. So, Jeff, if you just want to send it to me, you can use webmaster@focuscolorado.com. Or if you have my email address, I don't know if you do or not, but
I thought I did. Let me just check and see here. Well, tell me, I'm sorry, Carl, tell me again, webmaster what?
webmaster@focuscolorado.com.
Webmaster@focuscolorado.com. Okay, I'll shoot you an email here when we're done with the invite for everybody, and if you're interested. Yeah, like I said, so tomorrow night is going to be just an hour. It's with the Lone Tree photography group. So you could even check their site out on Meetup, and the link will be there as well. And I invite you all to come. And then, as I mentioned, I will have this page that I'm working on, my new website that'll have all of these videos on there, and I'm going to follow up with several shorter videos of maybe 10 minutes kind of thing, with specific, like I might do one video which would just have like 4 or 5 different compositional elements and ways to practice them and recognize them, and then kind of concepts of how to use those together in scenes, which will make your composition stronger. So that's kind of what that whole process is going to be. So this is going to take place over the next few months. But again, thecreativeedge.live is the new website that'll be up. Hopefully, I'm looking at probably the end of next month, the end of July, that it'll be up there. But just keep that in mind. And of course, most of you guys are on I think everybody's on my email list. I'll send you launch dates and information that you'll be able to go out there and just join in and see what I'm saying, and of course there'll be stuff you can look at over and over again. So that's the thought there. And the road trips, as I mentioned, are still going to be alive. We've got some good ones coming later in the year. I know everybody has different ideas of travel. We're actually going to Alaska 2 different times. August for some bear viewing and some mountain viewing and some great eating. As you know, that's part of a road trip, is good food. Going to go back in September for the Northern Lights. And then, of course, I've got a new fall trip that I would invite you all to come on. We're going to go do a tour. So a lot of the trips, for those of you who've been on, we'll go to one location and just park ourselves there and hit different areas to shoot. But in, and I'm just going to look it up real quick because I don't remember the dates. But in, I don't remember. Hold on. And you thought I was prepared, Larry. Okay, so in, come on. So Autumn in New England, it's called. It's on soulroadtrips.com. And it is very slow to come up on the other computer here, so. I do, if you look at the site, I also do still have a trip we were talking about doing in December back to Cuba, but we were going to go to a different place, Santiago de Cuba, as opposed to Havana, like we've done. And I'm not sure, honestly, if that's going to happen, because my connections down there are telling me horror stories about what's happened to them with COVID, and then they've lost a lot of medical help that they used to have. So I can't see, honestly, Cuba being a very viable trip anymore. Why is my internet not working right now? Of course it isn't. Anyways, autumn in New England is where I was going. We're gonna do more of an actual road trip. We'll meet in Boston, and we'll get in a nice vehicle, and we're gonna drive up into Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and Pennsylvania, and find some of the most colorful spots I've seen over the years, and just do a pure road trip and photograph the trees and the churches and the hills and the more trees. And we'll probably eat pretty well like we usually do, and there'll be some cemeteries and horse stables, and just some of the most, those of you who've been out that way, you know what I'm talking about, but we're going to do it in a week's time. And again, I don't know why the other computer just totally stopped going forward, but go to soulroadtrips.com and look for the autumn in New England trip, and I'd love to have you all guys all join me on that one. So
Sounds like a real good one, Jeff.
it's going to be fun. I can guarantee you that.
Whatever you do is fun.
It'll be fun, and we'll eat well. Those two I can promise you.
Well, thanks very much for judging and critiquing for us tonight. I really appreciate it, and everybody appreciates it, especially the ones that got tens. But.
Nice work, everybody. Seriously, everybody, beautiful stuff. Thanks for sharing that with me. So,
thanks, Dave and Bob and Carl, getting this all organized so we could do this.
Yep, good work.
I guess we're done now.
Hey, Larry?
Yeah?
Larry,
I just wanted to kind of, go ahead.
This is Bill Williams. I need your list of scores. My internet went out for a little while at the beginning.
Okay.
So get that to me, and then I'll get the results out to everybody.
Okay, I'll scan it and then email it to you.
Thank you.
Well, this is Dave. I guess we're just going to wrap things up tonight. So this wraps things up for the month. I just wanted to give a special thanks out to Jeff for his participation. He's always supported our group, not only for judging, but also presentation. So I always enjoy your comments, Jeff, and just a beautiful collection of images shown tonight. So I'm always impressed by the entire membership. And to close things out, I'd like to give a special thank you to Bob. He did an absolutely wonderful job tonight on managing Lightroom and showing. So I just wanted to kind of recognize him for all the work that he does behind the scenes for our club. So
I second that too.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks for me.
Thank you all.